Hey guys, there's a question that I get pretty much all the time that I figured I might as well make a video about since, in the comments and messages, so many people ask this. They ask, what major should I pick if I'm interested in going to law school? So many people who watch my videos are prospective law school students, a lot of undergraduates, even some high school students who are interested in law school. So they ask, well, what major should I pick if I'm interested in going to law school? Before I answer that, let me just sort of give the disclaimer, just so people are clear on this. I don't speak for any particular admissions office. I don't work in admissions. So whenever I say, what major is best, or here's what you should do for personal statements, this and that, just make sure that this not isn't necessarily reflective of the view of any given admissions office at a particular school. So just keep that in mind. The basis for a lot of my information is through years of reading articles and books on the subject, and through personal experience, having been in law school and speaking with a lot of the people who currently work and who have worked in admissions, who have given me advice on these topics. So that's sort of the basis for these things. But again, don't assume that it's reflective of every school's opinions on these matters. So again, the question is, what major should I pick if I'm interested in going to law school? And the answer is that there's no one particular major that is the best major for somebody interested in law school. You have people in law school who have come from essentially any background. I had classmates who were biology majors, English majors, philosophy, political science, music, hotel administration, anything you could possibly imagine. Somebody had majored in it and could possibly end up in law school for it. The things that help prepare you for law school as far as undergraduate work are particular skills, and those main skills are, your writing, your reading dense passages and long reading materials, critical thinking, critical analysis. Um, so when you think about, well, what can I do during undergraduate as far as academic preparation to help me for law school, I guess the best thing one could do be to pick an area that would expose you to these areas of writing. It doesn't have to be particular types of writing, just writing experience and becoming familiar with, getting something down on the page and, not being taken aback when you're given different types of writing assignments. So very dense reading passages and critical analysis and papers. Um, I guess some of the more common majors that you see among law school students are going to be kind of like your political science, English, English literature, philosophy. There's a good amount of history majors. These are some of the more common things, and it might be because a lot of the people who are interested in say politics or something like that, will be interested in going into law in the first place. So it's kind of a self-selection. But regardless of the reasons, these are the kind of areas that you most commonly see among law school students. And if you look at those areas, those are all majors that do involve a lot of reading, a lot of writing, a lot of critical analysis and thinking, and those are the skills that you kind of want to have at least some background in when you're applying to law school. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have come from one of those majors, of course. Again, I had classmates who essentially came from any major you could possibly imagine. But a good thing you can do is say you are, in economics or biology or something. Take a course in writing. Take a course in English literature that would expose you to those kind of like reading passages, critically analyzing them, writing papers. Just because you're not necessarily majoring in an area that has you do that every single day doesn't mean you can't pick up some of those skills by taking electives in those areas. That'll come through on your transcript and your resume when you're applying to law schools. Um, I had looked at a list that I saw from a few years ago, and it listed out sort of from the very top to the very bottom the majors through which people did the best on the LSAT. So, which majors had students who scored the highest on the LSAT. And that list, again, this what you have to keep in mind when you're looking at a list like that is the correlation versus causation. So on top of that list was physics and math majors. So people who were in physics and math tended to have the highest scores on the LSAT. It doesn't mean that being a physics or math student necessarily prepared them better for the LSAT. It might have been that people who, thought in the right way and some of the smartest students are going to pick these kinds of real rigorous, tough majors and then just end up doing well on the LSAT. Again, it's hard to know sort of what's the causation back or forth. Um, it's the thing, well, again, some of the things that were at the top of that list were, physics and math, economics, engineering, things that you wouldn't necessarily associate with law school, but people who were in those majors tended to do well in the LSAT. Again, it might be self-selection into some of these more rigorous majors by some of the more, academically capable students who, were going to do well in the LSAT regardless of what they picked. That might be, certainly a possibility. At the bottom of that list, the lowest two majors on that list were criminal justice and pre-law. Now, people would look at that and say, well, I thought that those might be good preparation and good choices for law school. And I'm not saying that they aren't. I'm just saying maybe you should possibly be wary about the majors like that. And there's a few reasons. Again, when you're looking at that list, if you see it at the bottom, it doesn't mean that taking those courses will give you the worst preparation for the LSAT. It might be self-selection into those two majors by maybe students who weren't quite as academically capable and weren't ready for quite as rigorous an undergraduate experience. And I think maybe because of those possibly unfounded assumptions, there might be some kind of bias toward majors like that as being kind of more fluff majors and not quite as substantive, not quite as rigorous. Again, it's not necessarily the case, but I've read more than one article and book on the topic in which people who've worked in admissions did say that they view those kinds of majors as less academically rigorous. Something you have pretty often in those programs is kind of grade inflation that sort of misstates what your GPA actually is by making it look higher than it really is. I think at the end of the day, what's most important, when you're an undergraduate, it's that you want to get a good GPA, right? You just want to, because that's an important credential when you're applying to law school. But at the same time, you want to enjoy your undergraduate experience in your course of study. You don't want to pick something just as a means to an end and say, well, I want to go to law school, so I'm going to pick this because it will give me the best preparation. Don't do that if it's something you dislike, If you have that kind of mind for science and you love chemistry, go with that route. Don't say I'm interested in going to law school, so I'm just going to pick one of poli-sci, English, or philosophy, Do something you like, but something that you'll do well in. Again, yes, something like biochem or biology if you have a good GPA coming out of a program like that, then yeah, you've shown that you can do well in the most academically rigorous kind of majors there are. And also, there might, again, so a subsidiary point to this is something like engineering or biochemistry. There are lawyers who specialize in things like patent law, that if they have a background in that, it can actually be excellent preparation. So, again, do what you like. Do something that will give you a good GPA. You don't want to pick something possibly hard just for the sake of, saying you picked the hardest major and then end up screwing yourself over. That's not what you want to do. So yeah, that's sort of my take on this topic. I'm sure I'll still keep getting that as a question in the comments, since it's probably one of the most common questions I've received over the past few years. But if you have any other questions or comments, just let me know. All right, see you guys.